Today, I'm going to be talking about the evolution of what I would consider to be Disney's greatest franchise, the Cheetah Girls. To start things off, let's talk about how their fashion has changed throughout the course of the three films, because I feel like it was some pretty drastic shifts in each movie, like between their clothes or whatever. In the first movie, we see that they do experiment with lots of colors, but I would say that these colors are nowhere near as bright as the ones we'll see in the third film. When I watched the first movie, colored leggings is a piece that I noticed that they wore a lot. In the first movie, they were simply just so fly. Like, it was very reminiscent of how Raven used to dress in That's So Raven. And I think in this movie, as fly as they look, I would say that this film is the one where they are dressed the most quote-unquote normal. Okay, so now on to my personal favorite of the three, the second film. This is where we start to see their clothes get a little bit more Disney-fied. However, let's be very clear, they were still very much eating the girls up. Their fits in The Party's Just Begun are completely unmatched. That's definitely my favorite look from this film. In this movie, we begin to see a lot more denim on the girls. We see that in Strut, Step Up, and obviously The Party's Just Begun as well. I would say in this movie, we start to see the colors got a little bit brighter. I also feel like this is the movie where we start to see more interesting patterns on them, which again kind of contributes to that overall eventual Disneyfication of their clothes in the third movie. So here we go with the third movie. Disneyfication is in full effect. In this movie, we see lots of super bright colors and interesting patterns, and it's so funny because as a kid, I didn't think anything of their outfits in this movie, to be honest, but looking back now, I can kind of see the differences between these fits versus their first and second movie fits, but I have to admit that their outfits in the first and second movies were a lot better. I did love Chanel's sweatsuit in Dance Me If You Can. I should have put that in favorites as well. But their fits in the closing scene for One World are my favorite from this movie. I just thought they all looked so gorgeous, and I loved the bright colors in that scene. It just looked like one big party. Something we have to talk about is how the personalities and storylines changed over time. Starting off with Aqua. Aqua had the most drastic character development of all four of the girls. She went from being low-key a little bully to being the most bubbly and sweet character ever. Aqua in Cheetah Girls 2 and 3 would have never spoken to Chanel the way she did in the first one. Growing up, I was an Adrienne Bailon warrior, so this scene made me want to jump through my TV screen as a kid. And then in the third one, we kind of see her whole thing become Kevin 347. Dorinda's character, in my opinion, was one of the most consistent throughout the movies. Dorinda didn't take any BS, and I will say, tying this to Dorinda, I feel like the first movie storylines were a bit more serious. And when I say serious, I mean serious in a good way. You know, each film had its own lessons that you could walk away with, but I do feel like the storyline of Dorinda being a foster kid was very significant and powerful for a Disney movie. And I don't think that we ever see them talk about that any further past the first movie. Another storyline that I really loved in the second movie was Dorinda's whole thing with Joaquin. I just thought it was really cute, and we got some Drew Seeley vocals out of it, so that was nice. So as I mentioned before, I feel like the storylines in the first movie were a lot more serious. I do feel like in the second movie, we still kind of get a little bit of that. So moving on to Chanel, a significant part of Chanel's storyline had a lot to do with her mother in the first two films. You know, I loved that in the first two movies, they touched on the whole getting used to your parent dating and just dealing with significant life changes in that way, because I thought that was really powerful. Another thing that I loved about Chanel's character is in the third movie, she's offered the movie role, but she declines it and chooses her friends over that. And I just kind of like that because I feel like all of the Cheetah Girls movies deal with kind of just having your own personal moral integrity and not really wavering on that. And I felt like that was one of the ways that we saw that in Chanel. Another way that we see the whole integrity theme explored is through Galleria. Galleria did not want to make music that was not true to who she really was and the messages that she wanted to spread. And real quick, back to Chanel for a second. I love my girl Chanel, but I feel like in the second movie, she kept ditching Galleria for Marisol. At least when the other girls weren't wanting to rehearse, Dorinda was learning ballroom dancing and stuff like that, and Aqua was doing fashion stuff with Galleria's mom, but Chanel was just hanging out with Marisol, so I didn't really like that. And on the topic of Marisol, don't even get me started on her mom, because her mom was beyond weird. And now on to Galleria. I know a lot of y'all like to say that Galleria was not the villain, and I would have to agree with you, but I do feel like as a kid I did view her as kind of like a villain. Although I don't think that she was a villain, I will say she was extremely out of line when she told Dorinda that she looked toe up and janky, because I mean, hello, like why would you talk to your friends that way? But I will say Galleria worked super hard, and I think that out of everyone she believed in the group the most and wanted it more than them as well. In the first movie I don't really think Galleria had much patience with them, but in the second movie we definitely see her patience for the other girls on display. And in the second movie, when I was little, I still kind of viewed her as like this like buzzkill or whatever, but when I got older I really realized like those girls never wanted to rehearse. If I was Galleria I would have been irritated too. And finally, these are my top 5 songs across the movies, and I do have a few honorable mentions in there. Sonically, I would say the music changed through the movies as well. You know, obviously when Raven left, Adrienne had to hold it down, and before that, the both of them held it down together. Not to say that Kiely and Sabrina didn't do their part, because everybody added something special to the group. But you know, Raven and Adrienne had that music on lock, and I do feel like the music became more Disney-fied in the third one. You know, like the music in the first two, especially that first one, it sounds like something you'd actually hear on the radio. And the third one, it kind of just sounds like a Disney soundtrack, which I mean, that's fine. It literally is a Disney soundtrack. But like I said, those first two movies, especially that first one, a lot of the songs sound like something you'd actually hear on the radio. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed, and let me know in the comments down below what your top 5 songs from all the movies are.